Helmand or Helmand is one of the 34 provinces of Afghanistan, located in the south of the country. It is the largest province by area, covering 58,584 square kilometers area. The province contains 13 districts, encompassing over 1,000 villages, and roughly 879,500 settled people. Lashkargah serves as the provincial capital. Helmand was part of the Greater Kandahar region until made into a separate province by the Afghan government in the 20th century. The province has a domestic airport, located in the city of Lashkargah, and is heavily used by NATO-led forces. The British Camp Bastion and U.S. Camp Leatherneck are located a short distance northwest of Lashkargah. The Helmand River flows through the mainly desert region of the province, providing water for irrigation. The Karjaki Dam, which is one of Afghanistan's major reservoirs, is located in the Karjaki district. Helmand is believed to be one of the world's largest opium-producing regions, responsible for around 80% of the world's total production. This is believed to be more than the whole of Burma, which is the second largest producing nation after Afghanistan. The region also produces the following: tobacco, sugar beets, cotton, sesame, wheat, mung beans, maize, nuts, sunflowers, onions, potato, tomato, cauliflower, peanut, apricot, grape, and melon. History. The Helmand River Valley is mentioned by name in the Avestar as Hitamant, one of the early centers of the Zoroastrian faith, in pre-Islamic Afghan history. However, owing to the preponderance of non-Zoroastrians before the Islamization of Afghanistan, particularly Hindus and Buddhists, the Helmand and Kabul regions were also known as White India in those days. Some Vedic scholars also believe the Helmand Valley corresponds to the Sarasvati area mentioned in the Rig Veda as the homeland for the Indo-Aryan migrations into India. California, 1500 BC. The area was part of Arachosia and frequent target for conquests because of its strategic location in Asia, which connects southern, Central and Southwest Asia. It was inhabited by ancient peoples and governed by the Medes before falling to the Achaemenids. It was invaded in 330 BC by Alexander the Great and became part of the Seleucid Empire. Later, it came under the influence of the Indian Emperor Ashoka, who erected a pillar there with a bilingual inscription in Greek and Aramaic. The territory was referred to as part of Zabulistan and ruled by the sun-worshipping Zambils before the Muslim Arabs arrived in the 7th century, who were led by Abdurrahman bin Samara. It later fell to the Saffarids of Zaranj and saw the first Muslim rule. Mahmud of Ghazni made it part of the Ghaznavids in the 10th century, who were replaced by the Ghurids. After the destructions caused by Genghis Khan and his Mongol army in the 13th century, the Timurids established rule and began rebuilding Afghan cities. From about 1383 until his death in 1407, it was governed by Pir Muhammad, a grandson of Timur. By the early 16th century, it fell to Babur. However, the area was often contested by the Shia Safavids and Sunni Mughals until the rise of Mir Wais Hotak in 1709. He defeated the Safavids and established the Hotaki dynasty. The Hotakis ruled it until 1738, where the Afsharids defeated Shah Hussain Hotaki at what is now Old Kandahar. In 1747, it finally submitted to Ahmad Shah Durrani and since then remained part of the modern state of Afghanistan. Some fighting took place during the 19th century Anglo-Afghan wars between the British and the local Afghans. In 1880, the British assisted the forces of Abdurrahman Khan in re-establishing Afghan rule over the warring tribes. The area stayed calm for 100 years until the 1979 Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. Helmand was the center of the USAID program in the 1960s to develop the Helmand and Arghandab Valley Authority. It became known locally as Little America. The program laid out tree-lined streets in Lashkargah, built a network of irrigation canals and constructed a large hydroelectric dam. The development program was abandoned when pro-Soviet Union forces seized power in 1978. Although much of the province is still irrigated by the Hava, Karzai and Ghani era, more recently the USAID program has contributed to a counter-narcotics initiative called the Alternative Livelihoods Program in the province. It pays communities to work to improve their environment and economic infrastructure as an alternative to opium poppy farming. The project undertakes drainage and canal rehabilitation projects. In 2005 and 2006, there were problems in getting promised finance to communities, and this is a source of considerable tension between the farmers and the coalition forces. It was announced in January 2006 in the British Parliament that International Security Assistance Force would replace the US troops in the province as part of Operation Herrick. The British 16 Air Assault Brigade would be the core of the force in Helmand Province. British bases were located in the districts of Sangin, Lashkargah and Jeresh. British forces were replaced in Sangin by elements of the United States Marine Corps 1st Marine Expeditionary Force Forward. As of summer 2006, Helmand was one of the provinces involved in Operation Mountain Thrust, a combined NATO-Afghan mission targeted at Taliban fighters in the south of the country. In July 2006, this offensive mission essentially stalled in Helmand as NATO, primarily British, and Afghan troops were forced to take increasingly defensive positions under heavy insurgent pressure. In response, British troop levels in the province were increased, and new encampments were established in Sangin and Jeresh. Fighting has been particularly heavy in the districts of Sangin, Nawai, Nawzad and Gamzia. There were reports that the Taliban saw Helmand Province as a key testing area for their ability to take and hold Afghan territory from NATO-led Afghan National Security Forces. Commanders on the ground have described the situation as the most brutal conflict the British Army has been involved in since the Korean War. In autumn 2006, British troops started to reach cessation of hostilities agreements with local Taliban forces around the district centres where they had been stationed earlier in the summer. Under the terms of the agreement, both sets of forces were to withdraw from the conflict zone. This agreement from the British forces implied that the strategy of holding key bases in the district, as requested by Afghan President Hamid Karzai, was essentially untenable with the current levels of British troop deployment. The agreement was also a setback for Taliban fighters, who were desperate to consolidate their gains in the province, but were under heavy pressure from various NATO offensives. News reports identified the insurgents involved in the fighting as a mix of Taliban fighters and warring tribal groups who are heavily involved in the province's lucrative opium trade. Given the amount of drugs produced in the area, it is likely that foreign drug traffickers are also involved. Fighting continued throughout the winter, with British and Allied troops taking a more proactive stance against the Taliban insurgents. Several operations were launched, including the more recent Operation Silicone at the start of spring. In May 2007, Mullah Dadullah, one of the Taliban's top commanders, along with 11 of his men were killed by NATO-led Afghan forces in Helmand. In April 2008, about 1,500 2nd Battalion 7th Marines occupied over 300 square miles of Helmand River Valley and neighboring Farah province. The operation was to set up forward operation bases and train the Afghan National Police in an area with little or no outside support. In June 2009, Operation Panther's Claw was launched with the stated aim of securing control of various canal and river crossings and establishing a lasting ISAF presence in an area described by Lt. Carl Richardson as one of the main Taliban strongholds, ahead of the 2009 Afghan presidential election. In July 2009, around 4,000 U.S. Marines pushed into the Helmand River Valley in a major offensive to liberate the area from Taliban insurgents. The operation, dubbed Operation Khanjar, was the first major push since U.S. President Obama's request for 21,000 additional soldiers in Afghanistan, targeting the Taliban insurgents. In February 2013, BBC reported that corruption occurs in Afghan National Police bases, with some bases arming children, using them as servants and sometimes sexually abusing them. In early March 2013, The New York Times reported that government corruption is rampant, with routine accusations against the police of shaking down and sexually abusing civilians, causing loyalty to the government to be weaker. Politics and governance. The current governor of the province is Mirza Khan Rahimi. The city of Lashkargah is the capital of Helmand Province. All law enforcement activities throughout the province are controlled by the Afghan National Police. The border is called the Durand Line and is known to be one of the most dangerous in the world due to heavy militant activities and illegal smugglings. A provincial police chief is assigned to lead both the ANP. The police chief represents the Ministry of the Interior in Kabul. The ANP is backed by other Afghan national security forces, including the NATO-led forces. Transport and economy. Bost Airport serves the population of Helmand for domestic flights to other parts of the country. It is designed for civilian use. NATO-led forces are heavily using the airport at Camp Bastion, where Camp Leatherneck is located nearby. There is no rail service. Primary roads include the Ring Road passes through Helmand from Kandahar to Delaram. There is a major north-south route that goes from Lashkargah to Sangin. About 33% of Helmand's roads are not passable during certain seasons, and in some areas there are no roads at all. Farming is the main source of income for the majority. This includes agriculture and animal husbandry. Animals include cows, sheep, goats, and chicken. Donkeys and camels are used for labor. The province has a potential for fishery. The region produces the following: opium, tobacco, sugar beets, cotton, sesame, wheat, mung beans, maize, nuts, sunflowers, onions, potato, tomato, cauliflower, peanut, apricot, grape, and melon. Healthcare. The percentage of households with clean drinking water fell from 28% in 2005 to 3% in 2011. The percentage of births attended to by a skilled birth attendant increased from 2% in 2005 to 3% in 2011. Education. The overall literacy rate increased from 5% in 2005 to 12% in 2011. The overall net enrollment rate fell from 6% in 2005 to 4% in 2011. Demographics. The population of Helmand Province was reported at 879,500 in the year 2013. It is mostly a tribal and rural society, with the native ethnic Pashtuns being the majority, followed by Baloch, Tajiks, Hazaras and others as the minority. There may also be small number of Hindus and Sikhs who run businesses in the provincial capital, Lashkargah. The Pashtuns are divided into the following tribes: Barakzai, Nurzai, Alakozai, and Eshakzai. All the inhabitants practice Sunni Islam except the small number of Hazaras who are Shias and the Sikhs who follow Sikhism. Districts. Politicians. Dad Muhammad Khan, Shah Muhammad Akhundzada, Muhammad Daud, Senator Abdul Wahid Kariswal. Gallery. Images of Helmand Province. The Karjaki Dam and Spillway. Camp Bastion at night. New Afghan recruit. Forward Operating Base Edinburgh. Soldier of the Afghan National Army with an RPG-7 at Camp Shorabak in Helmand Province. Afghan National Security Forces, which includes Afghan National Police, Afghan Border Police and Afghan Local Police. Afghans with national flags.